Hello everybody, and welcome back to JoJOverdrive. To prepare for the upcoming Part 9 of JoJo, we are going to be going through a complete reflection upon the previous part, Part 8, JoJolion, and we're going to go through each of the major story arcs, and we're going to discuss our thoughts about it. All the good, the bad, and the ugly, as
right.
they say.
All your favorite hits, like Flashback Man, the Flash Forward, Toru,
Oh
and
my god.
all of the other
All
amazing
JoJolion all the
things in
time.
JoJolion.
That's right, guys. JoJolion is a very controversial part. It's a very overall, I'd say it's very, I don't want to say it, but it's a very bizarre part. What good commentary we have here on JoJo
It's also
Overdrive.
the second best part.
I'd say it's in the middle of the tier list. It's in the middle of
Well, your opinion.
Well,
is,
I mean, I know.
valid,
Some people just can't be correct, like you. I know. Some people just have to be wrong. I think JoJolion is very good overall. I think it is. If you hear me talk about JoJolion, which you are about to, you'll hear me complain a lot. But that's mostly because it's so peak fiction that every tiny little thing that isn't peak fiction stands out even more so.
Exactly.
Like, I could not complain about Phantom Blood as much as JoJolion, but Phantom Blood is by far worse than JoJolion.
Phantom Blood is also about 1 minute long. So
Yes, it takes about 2 seconds to watch it, and people skip it because TikTok ruined, I don't know, it's freaking retaining things after 5 seconds of information. Maybe if we add a Family Guy funny moments compilation in the side window.
Subway surfers and cutting clay.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Anyways, getting on to JoJolion now.
Oh right, we're talking about JoJolion.
Oh, silly me. Oh.
I almost forgot about that.
How do we like chapter 1? We're not going to go chapter by chapter, but I feel like first and last chapter we should specifically pay attention to.
Yeah, I think chapter 1 is honestly Araki's best intro, because I'm just saying, even though part 7 is the best part in my opinion, and I know you think that too. The first chapter I think is pretty weak, just in terms of I see a million people being like, when does Steel Ball Run get good? Like 20 chapters in, and I know the fan most fans think that Steel Ball Run doesn't get amazing or good until it moved to Ultra Jump. I think it was pretty good all the way there, but it had a rocky start. Even I agree with that. It's slow. It takes forever to get Johnny in there. Part 8, you're just immediately thrust into the mystery. Obviously, there's parts of it that don't work in hindsight, like the teeth marks and stuff.
Which, not technically needing to be explained because it's pretty obvious. It's just a signifier that they've gained a stand. It would have been really he puts a lot of emphasis on it, so it would have been nice to get some clarification. And the only explanation we have for now is it's just a supernatural occurrence that has when someone gains a stand through the wall eyes. That's all we have to work off of.
It's not a super big deal, but it's just, again, one of those things in JoJolion that happens extremely often, where there's a little plot thing that everyone's like, this is gonna show up later, this is gonna come up later, and then it's completely irrelevant.
I think in order to get the full grasp of JoJolion and the qualms me and many other people have with it, you have to first understand that the first half of this is set up as a mystery story, so it makes it seem like small details should be remembered. For in part 7, no one cares about the mini horses at the beginning that never get explained, the tiny little horses that don't actually end up mattering.
Because it was never gonna go anywhere. It wasn't like in the last thing, alternate Diego was gonna get killed by the mini horses.
Yeah. But in JoJolion, it's set up from the beginning to have many mystery elements, and in a mystery, you use key details to form a overall, an overall plot. That's how that was connected. But when there's so many things that don't actually lead anywhere, or were never going to lead anywhere likely, it kind of paints an incorrect picture. Aside from that, though, I agree. Part 7's chapter 1, which is the most equivalent chapter 1. I don't want to make this a discussion about part 7, but I do think that part 7 is so integral, and that's not a word, integral. I'm skip over this. But
Integral.
Integral editor. Whoever's editing this, make me sound smart right here, or I'll pay who's ever editing this. If I'm editing this, give yourself a pat on the back. Integral part. And part 7 is integral to part 8, so we will talk about it a lot compared to every other part besides JoJolion. And chapter 1 of Steel Ball Run, rereading it again, it's literally just Steven Steele explaining what the Steel Ball Run is for like a million pages. It's just him going, it's him going, this is a race where we have horses and we're going across the continent. Here's the sponsors, here much money, here's the placements, here's the time bonuses, which if you finish part 7, which if you have not read JoJolion at part 7, what are you doing here? Go, get out of here. Anyways, back to the discussion. If you've read part 7, you know that the details of the race, it's like a psyop. It's not actually important. It's a cover up for the real mission of obtaining the Holy Corpse. So the race details doesn't matter. The first chapters of Steel Ball Run are very good. It's like a people have compared it to like a sports anime. It's very sports anime-y, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, and originally it definitely seemed like all of his editors were being like, we want a new series. We don't want JoJo anymore. And like all the times Rocky has said to make something new, he either does a Rohan chapter or just goes back to JoJo.
Yes.
So I think that there was an editorial thing that was going on, and is what made it so that Johnny wasn't introduced for a little while, and it wasn't called JoJo until it went to Ultra Jump. And part 8's just able to be a lot more clear from the get-go.
Exactly.
Like, we're going right into this.
In contrast, it's a lot more of clearly a JoJolion chapter from beginning to, like, comparing it to the last chapter, it's still very clearly JoJolion, while comparing the first and last chapters of Steel Ball Run, they seem pretty different.
How do you think the story would have changed if the 2011 earthquakes didn't happen? Because I find it really interesting how that is so integral in the first chapter when it only happened within months of JoJolion releasing.
Yeah, it's very different. I think that the idea of the Walleyes period being this kind of it's the Walleyes were formed because of the Holy Corpse had made the ground a devil's palm, and so when the tsunami attacked, the kind of pseudo Holy Corpse ability to like redirect misfortune protected the land or whatever by like rising up the ground or whatever, and I think that whole concept would have just not been a thing. I think that I think on a like visual and narrative level, it would have just been, oh, Morio is a devil's palm, not there is a set of protrusions on the coast or something. It would have been implemented differently, yeah. But I guarantee, effectively in the story, it would have done the same outcome. But like in a lore sense, it's very different, I imagine, to what was initially.
I think it would have still been set in modern day.
Yes, I think so. Yeah? I don't see this. Okay. I don't see why there's any reason not to. I don't.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, like for example, Yasuho is a very good example. Paisley Park is a very technologically based stand, and if it was set, for example, late 90s equivalent to Part 4, it wouldn't have been as prevalent. It would have been much smaller. Like there was GPSs quote unquote existed, but like, but
compass.
Yes. All right. So, do you have anything else to say about Chapter 1?
Not really. Just that I guess just that it's interesting how designs change over time, like Joshu specifically.
Yes, Joshu's Chapter 1 design is very different than later. He has. I think it's better. I think his design gets worse.
Yeah, I agree.
I get what he was going for. Like he's obviously meant to look unappealing, I believe is the idea, but there's a difference between an intentionally unappealing design and like just like a unappealing design. I think later Joshu kind of wavers in between that line because his hair is just very weird. It's not even like a funk. It's not like Giorno's hair is like really weird and crazy and everything. It's like Joshu's just looks not good or
awful in every way.
It doesn't. It's not good. But his old hair, he had like there was some semblance of like cohesion to it. It like made sense as a haircut in some way that like, you know, was stylistic. Later it's not, but in chapter 1 it works out. Yasuho also has like a slightly different design. That's more of a art style change rather than Joshu's. Literally the haircut is entirely different. That is and
his eyes too are like,
yes, his facial features has been like a bit modified. Anyways, the first section that we're gonna go over is everything around the fun arc, basically, essentially. Which I think that fun is a really good first stand fight. That's my...
Yeah, I think it's a good intro, and I've talked about this in other discussions before, but I like how they play on what you think of Kira.
Yes.
Early on, because you immediately are just like, oh, okay, we're in Morio. We know that Kira's involved, and we obviously at this point, all we know is that Josuke has some kind of weird properties. He has 4 balls and stuff. Like we don't know he's a fusion yet.
Yeah,
so for all we know,
we just completely glossed over the fact. Chapter 1, this guy has 4 testicles because like by the time you finish JoJolion, that's just such a normal thing that I didn't even like. I completely forgot. That's just like a major plot relevant thing.
But then the fusion stuff isn't really picked up on in full force until Born This Way, when you figure out, Kira's one of them. But at this point, before you realize, Kira could still be a threat, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
And then so you're thinking this whole time like, oh crap, and then you have the Mona Lisa still there.
Yeah, Mona Lisa's and he has statues of his hands or whatever.
The
like
clippings and the hands and all that. So
and of course you think the whole you think the whole fight or whatever, because he sets up the freaking the interesting photos. The Ojiro sets up the interesting photos with this naked woman in his house. He like plants them or whatever, and then he sets up all his traps or whatever. And you're like, this Kira guy is Kira from part 4. He's an absolute psychopath. He needs to be dealt with, which is one of the biggest like things that's like, if you just skipped all the way to part 7 to like the quote unquote reboot, if you skipped all the way there, you're really missing out on this. Like, this only is effective if you have read part 4, if you have anticipated this moment based on your previous conceptions of what Kira is supposed to be.
Like, I try and sympathize with people that like want to start with Steel Ball Run, and even Araki said like he had intended Steel Ball Run to be like a fresh start, but like the story simply does not hit the same when you have the world at the end of part 7, when you have all of the preconceived notions of the alternate universe characters. And then because there's twists that play on all of your expectations for the characters. You're like, oh, Josuke is here. He's going to be a delinquent, right?
Yeah.
And then now it's like he's completely different. In part 4, Josuke are 2 of the most dissimilar JoJos. Like, in terms of, if I was to compare 2 of them, they are like very opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and for the ones that share names, you wouldn't think it would be them. You'd think it'd be something else. But no, I'd agree with you. It's them two who are very, very different.
What do you think about Soft and Wet's abilities at this point, and the reveal of Soft and Wet?
I was literally just about to mention that. Soft and Wet at the beginning of the story. I think Soft and Wet's like introduction, like very first introduction, probably the best protagonist stand introduction. That's what I'd say. I'd say
Tusk happens too late, I think.
Tusk happens too late. Tusk gets introduced, I believe, in freaking Pork Pie Hat or something. Yeah. Which is that's such a fillery stand fight to introduce like your main protagonist stand.
You would have thought it would have been in Boom Boom Family, honestly.
Yeah, which was like their first major stand encounter. But no, it's the second like random child that you introduce it.
But I'm just gonna say Pork Pie Hat Kid. I gotta shout out to the commenter.
Yes.
Pork Pie Hat Kid, #1 fan. He is the best villain of part 7.
This is not me dissing Pork Pie Hat Kid. This is me saying that they should have had more focus on Pork Pie Hat Kid and not on stupid Johnny Joestar.
You should have got like 18 parts of Pork Pie Hat Kid.
Precisely. I genuinely do think that the Pork Pie Hat fight is fun. It's a fun part. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's just objectively though, most of the events that happen in that fight are like fillery. Like they don't they besides Tusk being awakened, but that again that could have happened in the Boom Boom family fight. But yeah, Soft and Wet
totally the best.
Is totally the best. I'm thinking back, part 3. It's just introduction of stands. You can't really do much with that. It's a cool idea how he's like, oh, I think I'm haunted. That's fun. Part 4 is literally it. I think I think Crazy Diamond's probably the weakest stand introduction because JoJo shows up. He's like, you have a stand, and he's like, oh, here it is, and it's like.
Also, now we have the spinoff where it's like you see Crazy Diamond earlier, so it's not.
Yeah,
it's
he's
even used to having him.
Yeah. Part 5, Giorno shows Gold Experience, and it's kind of like a mystery on what it does because Koichi's being like attacked. He's had his luggage transformed. You're like, oh, what does this do? And there's a bunch of shenanigans there. Stone Free is probably what do I think? Stone Free is probably second best. I'd say second best introduction. As a really really cool part where she kills the lawyer or whatever. Does she kill the lawyer? Or does he just, like, incapacitate? Is it retired? Ha ha ha. I don't remember.
I think it's retired.
Either way, heavily injures a very bad person, and that's fun. But none of them compare to Soft and Wet's introduction. That introductory panel goes incredibly hard.
Yeah, definitely. One of the like classic JoJo panels.
And this is, again, getting into later stuff, but it is important. Soft and Wet's design here, in the very first appearance, I think it's the best it's ever been. I think it gets a bit worse. It gets a bit weaker when he redesigns it later down the line. It's a very slow transformation. You hardly even notice it, but like the body shape gets different. The weird ear things, the shape is more straight and less like of a curve into it. And he keeps the anchor though, which I'm a big fan of. I think it's fun. Anchor's fun.
Also, in the original teaser, Soft and Wet looks even more different. Obviously, Josuke does too. That original teaser was probably made months before.
Oh, absolutely.
He finalized.
You can see the subtle like silhouette behind him, and even in the I believe in the volume cover, it looks kind of off. But it's the shape is completely different. It's very clear there was some redesign there, which thank God, because Soft and Wet is peak stand design visually. It's very good, very good. But rather than talking about like aesthetic stuff, let's go back to Soft and Wet's abilities. At the very beginning, and it peters off slowly until basically by like the halfway point, it doesn't really matter. At the beginning, Soft and Wet removes things from other things, and it always does that. But in the first half of the part, it removes like concepts mostly from things, like just like attributes.
Friction.
Like it removes adjectives basically, like someone's moisture, someone's friction, someone's sight, and stuff like that. And that is a very, very busted ability. So I believe what Araki wanted to do later down is just kind of, it removes physical things from other things, like removes the hair from a cat, or like the I think he like removes like the bristles from one of the chestnut seeds or whatever when they're being attacked later in I Am a Rock. It's much less, I remove, like, because with the ability at the beginning, you can't really judge how it exactly functions. Like, you don't get a good sense of what his limits are and what he can remove from someone, because friction that's a busted ability. Being able to remove
like,
friction
in so
is
many
wild.
You can just go boom, and then everyone starts slipping and sliding
like,
everywhere.
Oh, I removed gravity from you. It's like, what's the limit here? The first use of it, like, really, is he removes the sound from a wall, which is a very smart application to the fight, because fun is a very big, like, conditional stand. JoJolion as a whole kind of it gets into,
it's almost like all ranged stands, and
it's all super range stands and stuff. And most of the time, stands, except for the very end, stands are like nerfed basically. Stands are are considerably more weak than they are in other parts, like even part 3.
I never expected in this arc for Ojiro to come back later. I was this guy's a one and done. and then later he shows up, and there's a great bit with him. which we'll talk about during that arc. But
Ojiro is a very fun character. He's funny. He's funny surfer guy, and he's just kind of a bad person. Is his kind of personality, but it's in a kind of fun way. And the reveal that he bites off
no fingers.
Kid named No Fingers. The reveal that he bites off all his fingers because Kira was just trolling him too hard, as I would say. That's a fun part. Do we get? I forget. I don't actually have like the actual like manga pulled up right in front of me. I just have the wiki summary. Do we get to see the flashback where he tells him like, "Oh, stop being a man of the nothing. You suck."
I don't think that's until. I don't believe that's until Vitamin C.
I think he just mentions it. I think he just talks about like, "Oh, he was pestering me a lot, so I bit off my fingers because I was annoyed a lot."
Yeah,
I think
we see it a different time because it is Vitamin C, because Kira did not have a finalized design at this point, and you can tell his hair looks more stringy when you see him in the flash, like the photos here. But then when you get to Vitamin C, he has way more straighter hair. He's a lot more. His design's different, basically.
Oh, absolutely.
And now we have to mention, as part of this arc, the man, the myth, the legend, the flashback man.
Of course. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else who is watching, the biggest point of contention. Remember how I mentioned earlier how that in mystery stories such as the first half of JoJolion, and even kind of later, but the mystery elements are mostly dropped after the story is fully, like, his backstory is fully revealed. In mystery, early elements revealed should probably lead to something that matters or happens or has an explanation. So in the midst of the Ojiro fights, Gappy receives a revelation that oh wow, there's something in my memories, and there's a guy. There's a guy. He looks like this, but I don't know who this guy is. Why am I thinking of this right now? And it's like, who's this guy? Who's this guy in his memories? He's gonna show up later and do something cool, and then he never shows up or gets an explanation or does anything.
Even more doesn't make sense, because at the end of it, they make it explicitly clear that Josuke doesn't remember anything from his previous life, besides basic, like, how to function as a human being.
Yeah. So
survival skills. So him knowing Flashback Man makes no sense unless it's the Part 9 JoJo, and it will all be explained in the JoJo link.
Here's another thing. In the panel on screen right now, it shows Josuke seeing himself with quote unquote Flashback Man, as the fan name is. Like, not just him remembering Flashback Man, it's him remembering him with Flashback Man. He's in his own memory. And it's not Josefume or Kira, it's him. It's Josuke.
I'm looking at it. You could technically say it's an early Kira, but
Kira is like shown the next chapter to have a different.
When you see him, you don't see the teeth gap. You don't see green lipstick. You could explain it.
It's dropped after like chapter 10, but whatever.
You know what I mean, though.
I know.
There would technically, this early on, I could accept it, but yeah, it makes zero sense, even if it was Kira. By the way, I have no clue what Araki was ever meaning with this. I know my headcanon is that it's Damo, but like it doesn't make sense. Design. An early Damo design.
Even that, he barely interacts with Damo, and in no way like that. It's just it is literally just something that I don't want to say Araki forgot, but it's totally Araki dropped. I
think he had plans for it, and that it was gonna originally be something, and then I think he was like, I really want to lean into the fact that he does not remember. Like, he's not Kira, he's not Josephine, he's Josuke.
He's a completely separate person. He doesn't need to have
which I like.
Hold on to much of the past.
As much as we joke about it, I'm able to very easily just like accept that it was just dropped.
I can accept
it's not a big deal.
But while every single month that would pass, another chapter to chapter without any information about any dropped plot points, such as Flashback Man, it would just it would stick out like a sore thumb.
Totally, but I think reading it now, I guarantee you most people won't even notice the flashback.
You'll read it and then you'll immediately forget it and then it won't matter. All right, so after this point in the story, we are introduced to the main, the most important characters, basically, the Higashikata family, the new Higashikata family, which is much bigger than the original Universe 1, which consisted of, 3, and then the grandpa died in the original universe, and then there was 2 of them, which is Josuke and his mom. But in this, in the new and improved Steel Ball Run universe, we have a whole selection of funny characters and cool people, and their early designs, which are sometimes exactly the same as they are later, and a bit different. Like Jobin. Jobin's a bit weird. Tsurugi's a bit strange.
You barely see Jobin.
Yeah, he's just in the back. He doesn't say anything for chapters. But I do like how he is there. It's not just like, oh, he shows up later. It's like he's there. He's been there from the beginning. Because, he's a very significant villain in the series. He's there.
So something people don't talk about him enough is Tsurugi's age changes a lot.
Oh yeah, no clue if this is a weird translation thing or this is literally the original Japanese. The number is different.
No, but they clearly depict Tsurugi as way younger, like being held by his mom. Yeah. In as if he's 3. And clearly he just had to age him up because it makes sense for the rock disease and all that. Another thing I'm able to accept. It's just funny. It's just a thing you'll forget about.
It's just a bunch of in a mystery story, all of these things kind of stood out in the original running, but reading from volume 1 to the final volume, it is imperceivable.
Yeah, so it goes from 2 years old, and then it goes from a range to 9 to 11 years old. So in the first appearance, it was 2 years old, and then he quickly was like, I need to change it, and then it goes from a range to 9 to 11.
Okay. Because I don't remember. When is the rock disease triggered at? What year? I don't remember. I think it changes 2 times.
11th birthday, I believe.
Okay.
I could be totally wrong. It's 10th or 11th birthday.
Something like that. But anyways, the first real encounter we have is California King Bed, right?
Yeah, in terms of, besides fun, but I meant talking about
Higashikatas? Because after this next part, we kind of go into a overall Higashikata arc, basically, where we get California King Bed, and then we get Born This Way, and then Shakedown Road isn't really with it, but Joshu's there. You see Joshu's basically. Arc after arc, you get to see, oh, this is this family member stand. Oh, this is this family member stand. Oh, this is this family. That kind of just happens for the next couple arcs. So I've always considered it mentally as this, I think this section of JoJolion has its very, very, very good moments, but I think it's also the worst part of JoJolion is this small section.
It's the closest to part 4 by far.
It's the closest to part 4, and I don't think it works as well with the rest of part 8. As a whole, I think it doesn't mesh as well for me, but I like it. I like it a lot.
The combination of the early. This is where the most early designs and plot points are dropped plot points are used. So it's definitely messy when you're rereading it.
Yeah, and for example, the California King Bed arc I think is the worst part of the JoJolion period. I think that is my least favorite.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
I don't. Whenever I get to it, I'm kind of can I just skip over this because it doesn't end up mattering. And it's a filler fight.
One thing I do really like though is setting up Norisuke as a potential threat, being oh man, what's he up to? The marking on the stairwell,
yes.
And then you look in and you see the family tree, which becomes extremely important. It's going to be extremely important in part 9. So that's very cool how he set up the family tree.
All that stuff. Again, even in bad, I wouldn't even say bad arcs, in the lesser arcs of JoJolion, there's still very, very good elements. I don't want to show.
I wanted to talk about the family tree because this is where your first hint at obviously what happens with Johnny. You get your first mention of Joseph, who I was not really expecting to be anything. I thought it was just an Easter egg, like all of the other ones.
Same.
All of the characters are pretty much Easter eggs, but it's interesting how there's a lot more brothers and sisters and family members, period, which I think is gonna end up playing into part 9.
Absolutely. Because because the classic JoJo like legacy like theme that has been going on since part 1, legacy of your bloodline, Sonoji no Sadame, it's a classic part of JoJo, and I don't see Rocky ever dropping it.
Did you buy into Norisuke being a villain?
At the very beginning, yes. I thought he was very suspicious. I thought it was very weird.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of like that with the knowledge he has now, with the knowledge we have now, after reading the whole thing, stuff at the beginning, like Norisuke's like, don't go into the, what is it, like the study or whatever. Don't go up there or whatever. It's like, don't do it. It's like, that's interesting. Why is he doing that? It's literally probably, he's not being weird. It's probably just like, this is his like room or whatever. It's like, please don't go into my room. It's private. That's weird. He's not like malicious or anything. You think automatically that because, it's JoJo, he's being malicious. No, it's just like a courtesy thing almost. It's in retrospect.
It's also because they literally just invited him into the house.
It's like if someone came over and then you were like, hey, please don't go into my study, like without it like saying anything first. Thank you. That's all he's doing. But in a JoJo, when you first encounter it, it's like, what secrets is this guy keeping in this room? And it's just like it's a family tree. It's a book. There it is. Okay. Plot weird thing. Number 1 million. The mark, the strange marking on the railing. That is also a tattoo on Kira's arm. It is said to be a bookseller's mark. It is a bookseller's mark by a person who made a history of Steel Ball Run and subsequently like family tree of like Joestars and stuff. Why does he have a bookseller's mark tattoo?
He really, really, really likes just going to Barnes and Noble.
Why is that mark on the underside of a railing to lead up the staircase? What is that?
Originally this was gonna tie into oh my god, what's his name? The guy that makes the house.
Oh yeah, Yatsuyo?
Yes, that maybe it was gonna tie into him because he made the house, so he would have like made the railing.
That's his name, right? I'm not going crazy.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling down through the thing. Yatsuyo Yagiyama. I'm so sorry, Japanese people. I apologize so much. But
so I think it could have had to do with that, and that because remember in the Higashikata house there is a separate room for Kira, and it has like his belongings and stuff later, which some people say is in Rocky Forgot when it's not, because it's spelled out that Norisuke knew Kira.
Yes. That part absolutely.
So I think it might have just had to do with Kira working in the house, honestly. And also, don't forget, Kira's sister works in the house too, so
that's true. Yeah. Speaking of which, Kira's Born This Way is after California King Bed. There's nothing really that happens in California King Bed. I don't think that we need to really go over. It's whatever. Nothing happens. Pretty cut and dry. Born This Way is like it's like a really outstanding arc for beginning of JoJolion. I think that's like when I was reading JoJolion, Born This Way is like it really hit me. It's like this is the JoJo
Born
I know. This
design
is very
also
good.
Goes so hard.
Just like a biker dude or whatever. But it's like a stand biker guy. It's like, oh my god. And it's one of those JoJo things where there is no reason for it to be a biker. Her ability is cold. It's ice. It generates like a kind of blizzard around the radius of Born This Way. But it's just cool.
The original tidbit of Born This Way being going underground. Yeah.
Yes. Born This Way in the original release in Ultra Jump was named Going Underground after the one song I know but don't remember who did it. Is it Going Underground? Yeah, people have heard it before. It's very popular. And then in the volume releases, somewhere in between the release of the volume and the originals, Araki listened to some Lady Gaga and was like, "Oh my God, this is peak."
His
and
mind
then,
was blown.
Rename. It's like, goodbye, Going Underground. This stand is now named Born This Way. And the only remnant of that is on Kay's top of her hat. She has a G and a U on there, which I think is, even in the later chapters, when it, like, years later, when she comes back, the GU is still there, even though it's, by that point, it wasn't going underground at all. He kept it because it's a funny little Araki quirk. Funny little visual quirk. Yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. Oh, yes, this was like a big thing back when it was coming out, like the JoJolion was still coming out, and the new chapters with K in it were being released. But I forget when you actually first read this. It was a mistake that in the earlier parts her name was spelt out as Kyo. Not as like a
I remember this. Yeah.
Okay, not as like a English, they read it wrong, as in the literal Japanese itself was written like wrong. Like the editors missed it.
I remember
like,
that. Yeah.
Her name is Kyo Nijimura instead of Kei Nijimura. Which now that we have ever since, like, and she shows up way later, and Araki has a note, an author's note saying, "Hey, sorry, we messed up this name. It's supposed to be K, and it's not Kyo. It was always supposed to be that. This is wrong. Mm-hmm. It's K because original universe Keicho, which is Okuyasu's brother, is and then this new universe is K. So it's clearly supposed to be kind of like a." It's like it's like look, it's funny. It's a reference to old character, but it was just not a thing for years. But now.
So I wanted to make a little correction for the fun arc real quick that I said earlier. So the man of the land, man of the sea thing is during that fight.
Oh, okay. So
the whole thing.
Okay.
Is during that.
Okay. So that stuff did happen. Okay.
Also, Kira's design, he could be the guy in the flashback.
I say no. I think the face is different. I think he wasn't. I think he wasn't full same face syndrome at this point as some parts of late Steel Ball Run.
What do you think about Holly, and her role in the part?
Well, Holly is the main focus of the part. Is the main Josuke's main motivation for the rest of the part, essentially, after he figures out his memories. And I think the introduction is interesting. I think it's originally at the very beginning of the story. Josuke has a habit of visually being able to measure anything like instantly. Like he does it a ton throughout his first initial appearances, and then we see when Holly's introduced that she does the exact same thing, and it's like, oh, how fun! That's interesting. So I think it's a fun way to introduce your character or whatever. Something else that she does at the beginning is notice Yasuho's Paisley Park at the very beginning, which means that she's in some way a stand user, or she's just like hallucinating, maybe. Which, to be fair,
I think I agree with the thing that she is just a dormant stand user. She could just see the stand. Because remember in the beginning of part 3, the original universe Holly is able to see Star Platinum in the prison cell.
Oh, that's true.
Without feeling the effects of her stand. So she was just a dormant stand user until it started. It's the same thing.
That is true. Another thing,
and I also do like the parallel with part 3.
Oh yeah. The fact that part 3 Holly, gets quote unquote ill because of her stand, and in part 8 she's also very ill and dying. That's a lot of fun. What was I gonna say? Something about the stand. Oh yes, her dormant stand. Kind of. I don't have a problem with that, but I think it is. I think she's characterized a bit differently at the very beginning than she is later, because we see her. At the very beginning, she's said to have like difficulty, like discerning differences between objects or whatever, and it's like, that she's kind of suffering from some like sickness mentally and like physically, but then that kind of it gets changed later on, not like retconned, but just like it's revealed later on, they were messing with her. They were messing with her with the lokakaka fruit, which has not even shown up yet in the story, now that I just realized. And I just it's interesting how over the course of the story, like the prevalence of the lokakaka fruit wasn't really fully cemented yet, and that kind of makes me wonder whether or not at this point in the story he even knew that was gonna be a plot point at all, because it's gonna show up in like a couple arcs, but it doesn't really. Also, it's in its initial instance, lokakaka is used as it's kind of like the Awasuke, the rock dog. Tsurugi says that Awasuke ate lokakaka and stopped being stoned. Perhaps this cures the disease. Which that's just, I don't know. Where did it's just a bit early lokakaka stuff is confusing. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that the idea of equivalent exchange completely was not cemented yet, so its involvements with Holly and other early plot points are kind of I think it gets a lot better later on.
Yeah, definitely. And again, we will for sure talk about this when we eventually get to Toru later in this, but it's just it's very annoying how he was not, there was no big threat about him. It was just the rock humans start appearing and stuff, but we just Toru, it isn't, they don't like really mention Toru, like even I wish they kind of made it like part 5 where it was like the boss or something and it was like cloaked in secrecy, but then it's like that only really happens starting like chapter 80, and it's like it's too late for that.
One last thing I'd like to say about Born This Way, is just kind of like a general thing. It's not really like a very deep analysis here, but I just think the ability of you open something and like a thing comes out. That's like a cool, like very uniquely JoJo thing that many other series couldn't do. Like I couldn't imagine something like in My Hero or something. Some character has the ability where when someone opens something, I trigger my ability. It's a very, very specifically JoJo thing, and I like that a lot. Especially the one like coolest moment I remember is when Josuke approaches Kei, and Kei like throws him a pen and it like opens up and it summons Born This Way. I remember reading that first time. I was like, oh my god, peak, literally peak. I felt the need to give big kudos to my homie Araki for writing such good storytelling and powers. Do you have anything to say about Born This Way before we move on to Shakedown Road?
I just think, again, I wish Kei showed up more throughout the story. I kind of like how he split alternate universe Jotaro into 2 characters too.
Yes,
it's just pretty cool.
Kei more like aesthetically,
and also we get the fruit where she uses the orange and the lemon.
Yes,
to show
I was about to say. We conclude Born This Way. We get the revelation that the walleyes, they can mix up things between 2 things. Josuke must be a mix of Kira and someone. Wow! And with that, we move on to seemingly some random fill arc, which will end with very big revelations towards the whole part with like Johnny and stuff. But at the very beginning, it's just Gappy's like, I want to go to school, Narusuke. And Narusuke's like, okay, Joshu, take him to school. And he's like, no, I don't want to. And then he like, is this the part where he bribes him to? There's a lot of funny. Joshu is a very funny character. I just like to say he does a lot of creepy, weird, stupid things that probably shouldn't have been written. But he has very funny moments too. I think he's a very funny guy.
I mean, this and the later the stuff with the sausages.
I love
fraudulent sausages.
Fraudulent sausages. Joshu's very funny. But when we're initially introduced to this arc, it's literally just they're walking down a road, and then weird stuff starts happening to them, and it's like, what's going on? And then it's revealed that, oh, this road's just kind of strange. And everyone knows the road is very like supernatural, and they just rob people. Their first instinct is, oh, we should use this magical force of the universe to just rob people. That's what we do with this divine power, and everyone just kind of knows it. Everyone in Morio apparently just like is aware of this and accepts it. You know, there's always cops around and everything.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things is that it isn't like a crazy weird. It's like everyone just is. It's just normal. It's just whatever.
It's just this is Shakedown Road. You go down this road, you get shaken down. That's just how it be. And the amount of different things that like are able to happen, like how the amount of different ways they're able to get extorted through this one ability, I think is very funny. It's like they quote unquote step on like the kid's toy or whatever. They break the turtle's like glass or whatever, and then they do like a drug deal with the leaves. For an ability that's just like moves something very fast. There's a lot of uniquely JoJolion moments there. Because in something like Part 4, which also, you know, very big emphasis on Morio and like the place, there wasn't. It had like the locations or whatever, like, oh, this is where Angelo is, oh, this is the diner, but something like this feels much more like JoJo-y, like unique, like, oh, these special leaves are like they've been imbued with stand power. Oh, that's like, oh, that's a very fun concept. And
obviously, we figure out that it's not just any stand power.
Yes, it's
the stand power.
It's the power. It's very likely the leftover remnants of Johnny's spin, or whatever.
Which is so cool.
In the future, which we should move on to this. Josuke like gets told this story of the legend of Johnny Joestar by like one of the guys who tried to extort him or whatever, or successfully extorted him. And then he's just like, oh, I'm fine. I got my money. I have no quarrel with you anymore. So I'm just gonna tell you this random story about the funky dude that lived here like 100 plus years ago. And then we get the conclusion to Johnny Joestar's story, including his death, which is huge.
Crazy.
Crazy huge. For the random funky arc where the leaves are the villains, to get something dropped like this. The Joshu arc, basically. The biggest arc before Milligro Man involving Joshu, which is crazy, which is very huge.
Also, what's interesting about it is that in the original family tree we see, there is not a death date for anyone. So that's why it's like, oh, Johnny could have died in like 1950s. Who cares, right? He's irrelevant to the story.
He dies young. Like he dies super
very
young.
Like, not as young. No, he dies at 30, I believe, which is
it's
older than Jonathan.
That's true.
And he has 2 kids, which is crazy too. That's totally different from the original timeline.
I also like how the ending of Steel Ball Run, where he's on the boat, directly links up to the whole rest of the family tree because he meets the I don't remember
Rena,
his future wife on the boat, and you can see her in the final like pages of Steel Ball Run, which I like a lot.
It was good setup, and I do think was intentional. Oh, well, absolutely. Also because her dad is the Higashikata, original Norisuke. Yeah, that's the main thing that ties it all together.
The second place winner of the Steel Ball Run. Yeah.
So yeah, and then we figure out that Norisuke gets his fortune from being in second place to then start the fruit company.
The fruit,
which all ties into it, and that is one of Araki's best like connections between parts. And again, this is why we're thinking Part 9 is going to be more connected to Part 8, because I think Araki's wanting to create a universe that's more cohesive than the Part 1 through 6 universe, which is fairly disconnected, especially in stuff like Part 5.
Yeah, like for example, like the ending of Phantom Blood, it connects, of course, into a battle tendency, but it's just like, it's his son, not good son. Yeah. Wait, is it just? I'm going crazy. I spent so long.
Grandson.
Yes, grandson.
And
Yeah, it was
Aaron
George.
is
George,
there.
I'm forgetting George. I'm forgetting.
George.
I'm so sorry.
How can you
George,
forget
so sorry.
George?
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, George stands. Please forgive me for my transgressions. It's his it's the biggest connection. It's like, oh, it's his grandson. Aaron is also here. So is Straits.
Yeah. And Dio's like basically
Stroheim is out. Not Stroheim. Why am I thinking Stroheim? Speedwagon is also here.
Straits. Also,
Yeah. But the fruit parlor, for example, which is directly connected to, like, pretty much mostly random side character for the entirety of Steel Ball Run. We're goaded into thinking he's the In a Silent Way user, but that was just a bait and switch for Sand/Sound Man. But otherwise, Norisuke's involvement in Part 7 is minimal.
It's basically nothing, but he does get saved in it.
Yeah.
So like he's there, you know.
It's not cool. Like freaking Baba Yaga was one of the racers, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's the one. Can I just say I think it's Baba Yaga. I correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this part where it's the very ending of the race or whatever, and Baba Yaga has his horse like faints like at the right before the bridge to the ending, and he's out of the race. I think it's such a sad moment. This random racer's been there the whole time. Yeah. What's his story? Araki, where's the Baba Yaga story? I need it.
Baba Yaga.
What's his? He crosses the whole continent to fail at the last like 100 like. Would that be meters? Yeah, probably. Anyways,
Johnny's design in this part like is really good.
He just has it's Johnny, but he's got some fancy sailor
stuff. A
stuff.
little simpler. He got the sailor hat goes hard.
Which
I also like that this is what is setting up the rock disease and stuff. This is like a really good because I mean obviously later we find out that Holly doesn't have rock disease and it's like a separate thing. But that is still, like, supposed to be hinting at rock disease, and Rocky clearly had the ideas for it. But this is where you really, really get it introduced before all the Sarugis and Jobin stuff happens.
And, of course, all the stuff with the Holy Corpse.
And I love, and with younger Lucy, all that's really good. It satisfied me as a Part 7 fan, even though it was sad seeing Johnny die, you know?
Yeah, but, like, it's not like Johnny could have just never died. I think also...
Yeah, obviously.
His death is also very Johnny-y.
Well, to be fair,
heroic.
Joseph never dies.
Joseph never dies, baby! But for JoJolion having the largest time skip in the series by far, I think it's appropriate to just assume this guy is hella dead.
Well, obviously he'd be dead, but he could have lived till like 90.
Hey man, we don't know how spin works in terms of like aging stuff. Hamon would lengthen a user's vitality a lot, so why not the spin? But I don't think that's true. as far as everything we've seen, that is a false. Yeah, that is incorrect. In fact, spin users seem to die a lot. They seem to get killed. But yeah, very, very well handled, all the Johnny stuff, all the connections and everything. And one last thing we kind of forgot about the part is Joshu's stand, Nut King Call, gets introduced in this part.
Yes.
And I think it's a very good reveal. I like the stand a lot. Yeah. Trivia, fun. Here's some fun JoJo trivia. Don't remember where I heard this. Maybe I'm just being lied to by the internet, but I swear this one's real.
I think I know what you're going to say, yeah.
Nut King Call's ability with the screws and the nuts and stuff and being able to take things apart and put them back together in different ways was originally supposed to be Soft and Wet's ability. It was supposed to be whoever he was envisioning the main protagonist, probably still Josuke at the time. Whoever he was envisioning at the time, that was his ability. And he liked it so much that he kept it for the best character of all time, Joshu.
Yay!
The moments he does use Nut King Call are good, and his design is also very good. So I'd say overall that was a W for a rare W for Joshu. Everyone give a round of applause for Joshu's good stand.
Yeah,
and sometimes he's funny. That's about it. But
and sometimes he sexually assaults people.
Yeah, but
a lot of times actually.
We'll get into that later. Because this is a good stopping point for this first section. We have, after learning the lore, the final lore of Steel Ball Run and how Johnny came to his end, and now knowing kind of basically Josuke's origin, the story kind of like takes a turn from this point to going into what the normal JoJolion plotline we know about with the rock humans, Lokakaka, everything like that. The fruit smuggling cartel. That's basically just part 5's, but like with fruit. So it's a lot more funny, but also they're very scary and violent, and we will soon start to see people kill each other instead of just these early fights have been very part 4 and just like, oh, we make up at the end, we're friends now, everyone's friends at the end of the fight, we're good, we're all chill. After this point, they start killing each other, and there's no mercy anymore. But how do we like the beginning parts of JoJolion? What is our thought process?
I definitely think it's shaky, but it has like an element to it that is some of the weirdest in the series that I can't help but enjoy, especially the Born This Way arc. I think is just so good.
I think Born This Way is the highlight of this section, as well as the Johnny flashbacks. But it is overall the weakest part of JoJolion. It is the least concrete. I think he was leaning a bit too much into the part 4 stuff at this point.
Totally, yeah.
I think
Morio is even more of a character at this point.
Yeah, he was doing part 4 retrain stuff instead of just making part 8 more unique. And if he wanted to do that, that's totally fine by me. But I think the later stuff where it's more original, I think that works off better for itself. And I think Araki thought too, because of, as we've been mentioning, all these early dropped plot points have been changed by the end of it. So he clearly wanted to change something from his early visions for the part 2. And I think that was for the better. So it's all uphill from here until we hit Toru, and then things get weird, but that's also good, but I also don't like it. I liked it better here when things were simpler. When things were just, isn't Flashback Man funny?
Flashback Man, yeah.
Oh, he forgot about him. Oh, that's so funny. But overall, good beginning. On reflection, doesn't really fit as much with the rest, but still good.
So next video in this retrospective series, we're going to be going from the Paper Moon King arc to the Vitamin C and Killer Queen arc. So some of the best stuff, and in my opinion, absolutely. Vitamin C, I'll get into more obviously when we cover it, but Vitamin C is my personal favorite JoJo arc.
Literally peak.
And then in the other videos, we'll cover the rest of it.
But for now, that is all for this JoJolion retrospective with your friends here at JoJoVerdrive. The next video should be out in a relatively short amount of time. We will see you guys next time. This is JoJoVerdrive, signing off. Shake it like it's heat. Overdrive. Coming through now. Coming through now. Coming through. Watch where you're going. Overdrive. Let the downside up to top notch. Whatever haters do.